Thank you so much for coming to our little group.
Thank you. This is a good bite. Lots of chocolate chips.
Oh, what?
Ted, I saw someone outside.
Honey, that's the man. He comes every night and tries to kill us.
We're just gonna leave him?
Oh, I'm sure he's already gone.
You said a man comes into our house.
Every night and tries to kill us. Hey, put it together.
What?
You're alone, isolated. A man could appear at any time.
He keeps coming back. He should be dead.
This man could be anywhere.
I just don't know what I would do in that situation.
Sure is scary. Very. I'm sorry, did I come at a bad time? I tried to call, but
I told you that something supernatural was happening. Would you believe me? We are being attacked. There's no rationalizing it. There is no saving us. So get used to it.
Thank you so much for coming to our little group.
Thank you. This is a good bite. Lots of chocolate chips.
Oh, what?
Ted, I saw someone outside.
Honey, that's the man. He comes every night and tries to kill us.
We're just gonna leave him?
Oh, I'm sure he's already gone.
You said a man comes into our house.
Every night and tries to kill us. Hey, put it together.
What?
you're alone, isolated. A man could appear at any time.
He keeps coming back. He should be dead.
This man could be anywhere.
I just don't know what I would do in that situation.
Sure is scary. Very. I'm sorry, did I come at a bad time? I tried to call, but
I told you that something supernatural was happening. Would you believe me? We are being attacked. There's no rationalizing it. There is no saving us. So get used to it.
Thank you so much for coming to our little group.
Thank you. This is a good bite. Lots of chocolate chips.
Oh, what?
Ted, I saw someone outside.
Honey, that's the man. He comes every night and tries to kill us.
We're just gonna leave him?
Oh, I'm sure he's already gone.
You said a man comes into our house.
Every night and tries to kill us. Hey, pull it together.
What?
You're alone, isolated. A man could appear at any time.
He keeps coming back. He should be dead.
This man could be anywhere.
I just don't know what I would do in that situation.
Sure is scary. Very. I'm sorry, did I come at a bad time? I tried to call, but
I told you that something supernatural was happening. Would you believe me?
We are being attacked. There's no rationalizing it. There is no saving us. So get used to it.
Thank you so much for coming to our little group.
Thank you. This is a good bite. Lots of chocolate chips.
Oh, what?
Ted, I saw someone outside.
Honey, that's the man. He comes every night and tries to kill us.
We're just gonna leave him?
Oh, I'm sure he's already gone.
You said a man comes into our house.
Every night and tries to kill us. Hey, pull it together.
What?
you're alone, isolated. A man could appear at any time.
He keeps coming back. He should be dead.
This man could be anywhere.
I just don't know what I would do in that situation.
Sure is scary. Very. I'm sorry, did I come at a bad time? I tried to call, but
I told you that something supernatural was happening. Would you believe me?
We are being attacked. There's no rationalizing it. There is no saving us. So get used to it.
Thank you so much for coming to our little group.
Thank you. This is a good bite. Lots of chocolate chips.
Oh, what?
Ted, I saw someone outside.
Honey, that's the man. Who comes every night and tries to kill us.
We're just gonna leave him?
Oh, I'm sure he's already gone.
You said a man comes into our house.
Every night and tries to kill us. Hey, put it together.
What?
You're alone, isolated. A man could appear at any time.
He keeps coming back. He should be dead.
This man could be anywhere.
I just don't know what I would do in that situation.
Sure is scary.
Very. I'm sorry, did I come at a bad time? I tried to call, but
I told you that something supernatural was happening. Would you believe me?
We are being attacked. There's no rationalizing it. There is no saving us. So get used to it.
Welcome to another edition of Dissecting Horror. I'll be your host, Josh Milliken, and tonight it's all about Lucky, which was just released today exclusively on Shudder. Lucky, a crazy, nightmarish, metaphysical slasher that is unlike anything you've likely seen before. And we're going to be talking about it. Maybe you've already seen it, maybe you haven't yet, but it is available to stream now on Shudder. Let me tell you who I'm here with. First of all, I'm with the film's director, Natasha Kermani. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so glad to have you here. You know, you're part of the Dread Central epic family. Your last film, Imitation Girl, was one that we're happy to release, and you know we're just as thrilled about Lucky, which we just can't say enough good stuff about.
Yeah, I'm super excited to share it with the world. As of today, we're streaming.
Yeah, as of today, well, fantastic. We're also here with the writer and star of Lucky, Brea Grant. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. You play May in this film, and we kind of, the way the film is set up, we kind of go through it with you hand in hand, and we definitely go on a journey together through Lucky. It's a really intense film, and the fact that you're the star and the writer means that you're the perfect person to talk to get into some of these nitty-gritty issues. So really excited to have you here tonight. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Right on, right on. We're also here with Dhruv Uday Singh, who plays Ted, husband of May in Lucky. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you. Great to be here. Very excited about this movie releasing out into the world. Can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, there was buzz before it was released. It had a real nice run on the festival circuit in 2020, but now that it's more widely available, people are definitely chattering about it. Your character is definitely one of the unique and interesting facets of the film, and it'll be fun to talk to you about what makes Ted tick and how you approach the role and what do you think? What you think the messages of the film are? So glad to have you here, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. Can't wait.
Right on, right on. Also from the cast, Kausar Mohammed. How are you? You play Sarah.
Yes, hey, and so happy to be here and talk to y'all. And it's an exciting day to see it out in the world. So thanks for having us.
It really is. And, Lucky is a very perplexing film, and your character is perplexing and intriguing. And I'm excited to delve a little bit into the part Sarah plays in the strange saga of May. So thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
Right on, right on. In addition to the writer, director, and cast, we have the director of photography, Julia Swain. How are you, Julia?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm great, and I'm really glad that you're here. You're known for emotionally driven imagery and your ability to portray the human experience on screen, something you do in spades and Lucky. So I'm really glad to have you here to get your insights on what went into creating the aesthetic and to communicating the deeply nuanced film Lucky. Thanks so much for being here.
Awesome. Of course.
Right on, right on. And last but certainly not least, Jeremy Zuckerman did the score for Lucky. Welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Right on, right on. You know, you in addition to films, you compose for dance, for theater. You've done hundreds of episodes of television, so you're a really talented man, and can't wait to kind of delve into your approach to creating a soundscape for this very unique and intriguing and scary film, Lucky. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Right on, right on. So there are a few of you, and I want to talk to you all, and I want to get to questions from the audience. So I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm going to dive right in. Natasha, we got to talk because, like I said, I saw Lucky for the first time yesterday. Haven't been able to stop thinking about it. I haven't been as pleasantly perplexed since Donnie Darko. Legitimately. You've made a very perplexing film. That's not a question. That's a fact.
I can't take all the blame. It is Brea's script. So I just do what the script tells me to do, Josh. I just show up and do my job.
The two of you made something really, really wild. I was reading the review on RogerEbert.com, and a great review, 3.5 stars out of 4. The reviewer said, you've seen this, right?
Yeah, I did read it. Yeah.
The reviewer said, I almost take issue with it. Let me bring it up here.
I think I blacked out after the 3.5 stars. I just kind of went into a coma, but yeah.
I mean, it's a great review of a great film. When the underlying truth finally shows itself, almost at the very end of the film, everything you've seen before shuffles into awful and angry clarity. I was almost like, did we watch the same movie? Because, the only thing that I had perfect clarity on at the end of Lucky was that I needed to watch it again. Which isn't to say that it wasn't a great and profound moment. It was like the realization of my fears, even though I don't have words for those fears. But the idea that there's an aha moment at the end of the film where all of a sudden all the pieces come together, I was like, come on now. I mean, help me out here. You made something that's difficult to wrap your mind around. There isn't really a single moment. This requires a deep dive. Am I right?
It does. And I think the layers are very much a part of it. On pretty much every aspect of the film, there is nuance and there is layers and there's references on references. But at the end of the day, it is meant to be grounded in the experience of May, of our main character. So, I think the conversations that come out of it are welcome as long as we understand sort of the arc and the journey that this woman takes from the beginning of the film, deeper and deeper into this nightmare, right? She kind of leaves reality very quickly. It's almost like one of the first scenes of the movie, we start to go into the Twilight Zone, right? And so it's really it's quite simple. It's just a journey deeper and deeper through the looking glass. And then out of that sort of simple premise, we welcome all conversations and all interpretations, because I think, Brea's script does not present any sort of resolution or prescriptive answer to the problems that May is presented with, right? It is really meant to be a conversation starter. And I've almost been thinking about it as the film is almost a prologue, right? It's just setting up the situation. And now the movie ends, and then now the work begins. And so that's almost it's the entryway to a larger conversation and a larger story.
And that's definitely what I got at the end. Like I said, it solidified almost nameless fears. And it's like, now that the film is over, the unpacking begins, and the second wave of experiencing Lucky begins. So, fantastic job on bringing this to fruition. And, Brea, yeah, your script is fantastic. And I'm so glad that, you're not only the star, but you're the writer, because you're the perfect person to talk to about this. I feel as though, the viewer is basically holding hands with you the entire way, and we're almost clinging to each other to make sense of it all. I've never experienced a film quite like it. Your character, May, is trying to figure out some very confusing events, and everyone around her seems to know the answer, but won't tell her. And it just becomes so unnerving. So anyway, congratulations on the script. Tell us a little bit about where this came from. What was the spark that created Lucky?
Well, I mean, I think the themes are really obvious, I mean, if you watch the movie, I think there's a lot of talk about violence against women. There's a lot of talk about normalizing violence against women. And for me, it came from stories like that. It came specifically from something that happened to me, and me trying to figure out my way through with the police and the justice system, and dealing with my friends, and dealing with like the fallout after dealing with a stalker. And what struck me the most about dealing with that situation was that anytime I talked to other women about it, it would be like, right, of course, because they had all, and everyone's nodding, because they all can like relate to it in some way. And even if you can't relate to maybe a guy showing up at your house, you can't relate to what it's like to walk down the street and know that you're in danger because there's somebody right behind you, or walking through a parking garage. Like, that's obviously something in the movie, but is a metaphor, or something we've been told our whole lives. I mean, I think I was talking about it in an interview yesterday, where it's like, it's very normal to give a girl pepper spray when she goes off to college, because we've just been like, this is what your life is. Your life is this. Your life has all this violence in it. So I started there, and then it's me. So I have trouble making characters that are just good guys. I don't love people that just your regular final girl who does everything right. And so I kind of started the script with like this, with the story elements, and then I went back and tried to find a character that I would be interested in writing, who had sort of complicated feelings, maybe ones I didn't necessarily share, but I wanted to explore.
Yeah. I mean, May is such a complicated character, but it's a film that's full of complicated characters, which kind of segues me over to you, Dhruv. You play May's husband. And at first it seems like there's some familiar stuff going on in terms of, we have a character who maybe there's some issues of gaslighting going on here. But when we learn more about your character, we learn that you're very complex, and Ted is a damaged individual in and of himself. Can you talk a little bit about how you approach the film, and maybe how you would describe the character to someone who hasn't seen it yet?
Sure. Yeah. I think the way you put it is a great start. Anyway, I think going off of what Brea was just talking about, I think first of all, so much of that comes just from Brea's incredible script. Just like Ted being this, he's sort of a cipher, because you can't quite tell through a lot of the movie exactly where he's coming from, or exactly what he knows or doesn't know. You get the sense that he doesn't quite understand his wife, which of course is the case. And I think, like you were saying, Brea, I think is a very relatable, thing from, I'm assuming from a female point of view. I would say the way I approached it is, just even reading the script, I had a sense of this idea that men and women tend to walk around in pretty different worlds. We just don't really have the same experiences of a thing like a parking garage, as simple as that, or like you were saying, being sent off to college with mace is not something I have any reference point in my exact life for, but I know it from my female friends, from girlfriends I've had, you know, from people I've talked to. And so I approached it a lot as just like, how can I best support this allegory that Brea is setting up in this movie? Was sort of my entry point into Ted. And I think I felt like the most interesting way is to kind of play him as a bit of a cipher, a bit of a contradiction, which I think, you know, in a lot of relationships we are. Like, it's someone who really loves his wife and really cares about her, but also seems to just not have a huge gap in what he understands or what he's able to communicate with her about. Yeah, and then, you know, by the end of it, we start figuring out that there is more to this person, and of course, like you were talking about, the ambiguity of that big final moment. How complicit is Ted in this whole thing, which was an interesting thing for me to kind of chew on. Yeah, I hope that answers what you just asked. Maybe not.
It does, and it just brings up so much more. That's what I love about Lucky, is that it really just it allows itself to be unpacked like this, and it opens up all these conversations. Kausar, in addition to showing, you know, Lucky does a great job of showing the complexity between relationships between men and women. But what it does, which is a less common, I think, is it shows how complex relationships are between women and women. And Brea, I think you hit on this slightly, but that's, you know, the thing where, you know, May comes to Sarah, kind of hoping, you know, for someone who can bring it into clarity, and there's still almost a little bit of a cat and mouse between the two of them, where you feel like even Sarah isn't being as helpful with May as she could be. And it's like, why won't anyone help, you know, help us put the pieces together? Can you talk a little bit about that aspect of the film and your character?
Yeah, certainly. And just hearing it back, and just hearing what Brea was talking about, you know, like there is no or writing these characters that have these flaws and are so multidimensional. And the way I see it is, I feel like when I first read the script, seeing Sarah as a survivor herself, you know, survivor of violence. And then also just thinking about how, regardless of gender, like we live in these larger systems that we're taught to perpetuate, and regardless of gender, we buy into them and we make sure that they persist. And we're not sure whether it's because, you know, we think it can't change, or because we ourselves have been hurt. And I feel like Sarah is the perfect metaphor for that. Again, kudos to the writing on that, where it's like, you can't talk about the systems if you're not talking about the way that even internally that we're, like internalized ways we're perpetuating them. So in that sense, it was super exciting to see that in kind of portrayed in a character.
Right. Yeah, every character is, you know, like Dhruv was saying, Ted is like a cipher, and, you know, I'm not sure what Sarah would be, but yeah, it's like every character is like emblematic of something larger than just a character, and it's really fascinating. Just one of the many fascinating aspects of Lucky. It's just so great to have you all here to talk about it. But we're also really lucky to have Julia here, director of photography. You know, you've done some amazing work. You've won some awards. Your films have been screened at festivals all over. How did you approach this film, and what kind of challenges did you face creating a, you know, kind of like a unified look to a film with so many incredible themes and so many complicated layers?
Yeah, well, I mean, like the cast, I started with a phenomenal script, and I had a fantastic director guiding the process who had photographic opinions, which to a cinematographer is a dream. You want someone who pushes you creatively and brings vision to it visually. So, and I think, you know, Lucky was sort of a DP's dream, because usually you go into a film and you're like, what's the overall look of the film, right? What is the look? And Lucky, it has a look that evolves. And Natasha and I were able to kind of come up with, you know, within each act and you know, in each scene, how do these things progress? So, you know, one of the many good things about the script was you don't really know where it's going. And so it kind of starts out in what we think is, I mean, there's obviously things in the photography and the parking garage in the beginning that maybe hint at something being slightly off, but it's a normal day. It's a day in the life of May, and we're going on this ride. And then, you know, as things progress, there's physical things in the world of May that happen that don't happen in real life. necessarily to us, right? Some of the more surreal things. And in the photography, there are things that in color and in the way the camera moves that aren't typical in a normal movie. They're not as obvious as a body disappearing, but for May, but there's things that are just heightened and altered as her world sort of unravels. So it was about that. It was about a strong collaboration with Natasha and coming up with ways to kind of push the boundaries, which was really fun.
Fantastic. Let me pivot over to you, Jeremy, because you had a really challenging task ahead of you too. Some of the early descriptions of Lucky mentioned like a time loop and a Groundhog's Day element, which is really completely off the mark because it's time is going in a linear way. The fact that things are repeating isn't metaphysical, but there are things about the film that are surreal and that don't abide by the laws of physics. What was your approach to creating a unified sound for this movie?
Again, for me, it started with the script, and I got it pretty far in advance, I guess. And I immediately started hearing things. Sometimes you'll read a script and you don't hear anything as a composer, but sometimes you do. And this was one of those cases where I did, and that really made me like want to do this. I started hearing a sound with like extended vocal techniques, female extended vocal techniques. And to me, that was like sort of getting to the honesty of what the script is. And instead of like sort of highlighting like these idealized versions of vocalizations like that we use in our traditional music, I wanted to sort of capture like these sort of guttural sounds and these sounds that we all make, and you don't have to be like a professional singer necessarily to make them. And there's something that sort of speaks to a certain level of humanity that like traditional music doesn't necessarily always capture. So yeah, that was sort of like the direction that I started with. And Natasha, I sort of mentioned like casually maybe extended vocals to Natasha, and she instantly like, I could tell she like got it like immediately. And backing up a little bit, like she was attracted to my sort of more avant-garde kind of music as opposed to like the stuff I'm more known for. So that was really like exciting for me because I knew like we were going to be able to really do something, more sort of challenging, experimental. And so we just sort of took it from there, and we decided on like a simple palette of voice and cello. And the cello would sort of be like imitating the voice in a sense. And the cello, roughly, it's not always one-to-one, but it's like the cello is the man, and the extended vocals is Brea's character. And then there's sort of like some other things within the palette, sort of just helping sort of create the setting of the, the abstract setting of this sort of surreal setting with the electronics and things. But we kept it pretty like, streamlined. And once I started working, it was like very quick. I think we had, what was it, Natasha, like 3 weeks,
fast,
2.5 weeks? It was crazy. And essentially like I was composing and we were texting like kind of in real time.
Yeah.
And just constantly sending things back and forth, ideas. It was actually a really cool process. And
very modern, right? The modern technology that we
totally
would talk, and then 10 minutes later you'd have a new draft of it. It was pretty cool.
Exactly. It was so cool. And the feedback was great. And like you were like, your ideas were like, I mean, there was no like, huh? Like you totally were there instantly, and it made the process really fun. And it was like this great sort of creative feedback loop where, the kind of concept got clearer and clearer.
Is the soundtrack being released as well?
Yeah, Burning Witches. Yes, they're going to release it. I don't know, what, maybe a few weeks?
Yeah, very soon. I don't think we have a date yet, but it's going to be released on vinyl and digital download. So we're super excited.
Well, I can't wait to get a copy.
Can I just say one more thing? Because I think it's so interesting, Jeremy. We were working so fast that it was kind of like we were just going with our instincts, and it wasn't till later that I realized the man throughout the film, in the sound design and also partially in his performance, doesn't make any organic noises. He's very otherworldly. He doesn't really breathe. Yeah. He took out every human sound in the sound design. And it occurred to me later, Jeremy, that May is all organic sound. She's this vocalization, and that he's completely from the string instrument, like a totally artificial sound. So
totally, it's so interesting how when you're working super fast, you'll make these decisions that feel like very much from the gut, and then later you'll realize they're like very rational and they make a lot of sense from like a conceptual place. And that was like, that's a great example of that. Yeah.
Yes.
Really cool.
Well, I mean, the whole film is an example of just having a great team from top to bottom, you know, director, writer, cast, director of photography, composer, all of you had a very important part in making this film what it is. And it's really something incredible. You know, Jeremy, you're talking kind of about the Spartan nature of the soundtrack. And, you know, there's really a sparsity to the entire film. I think it's only 81 minutes long. You know, it doesn't waste any time, but everything is so layered that, you know, it feels like a much more involved experience. You know, even seemingly simple things like titles are very complicated. The title of May's book, Go It Alone, I mean, we could unpack that for 15, 20 minutes. Just the title of the film, Lucky, we can unpack that too. Is she lucky? What does it mean to be lucky? Is it insulting to call someone who's to say someone who's talented is actually lucky? So much going on. Incredible job all around. Kudos to all of you.
Thank you. And I think the title, like because we talked about the title a lot because it is just a word and it's not very Googleable and all that, but you know, it puts it all out. It's just, that's it. That is the whole movie is in that title, which is what a good title should do. And what I also loved about it is it was an opportunity for me to say, oh, this is a satire. Like we get to play here. Like we get to play with big, bold, expressionistic paintbrush because it's satirical, right? Like we leave reality very, very quickly. So I love the title, and I'm glad we kept it.
Yeah, we had so many conversations, like tossing out new titles. You're so lucky, like coming out with phrases and stuff. But it had been called Lucky since like day one, and I made a lot of changes of the script along the way, but the title never changed. And it just felt like it was a title where you at the end you're like, oh, that's messed up. And also Natasha doesn't even put the title in the movie till the very end, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I like end titles. I don't like opening titles. Let's start the movie. Like, what's going on here? We don't care.
Very cool.
Start the movie.
The past couple of years have been so significant for you. I mean, in addition to Lucky, I mean, we could talk about 12-Hour Shift. We could talk about After Midnight. You've really had a couple of really defining years, and simultaneously we're in this new COVID era where we can't do the fun stuff that we used to do, like going to film festivals. So what has this been like for you, having these wonderful career moments during a pandemic? And is there anything about the pandemic that's actually maybe worked to your advantage?
Well, I mean, there's obviously positive things because we, played some virtual festivals with Lucky. We played some with 12-Hour Shift. And I do think because of those virtual festivals, there were certain things about the movie that made the movies a little bit more accessible to people who couldn't normally attend a film festival. I mean, it's expensive to attend a film festival. I saved a ton of money last year not going to film festivals, just not buying food and plane tickets. Because, I mean, most of them will fly you out if you're the director, but otherwise, not so much. So, yeah, I mean, I think hopefully people saved some money. They'll get to go to film festivals this year or something. I don't have anything in them, but they'll get to go see something. So, I mean, that's a positive thing that a lot of people got to see it. But yeah, no, it was incredibly disappointing. I mean, Natasha and I were together when we found out South by had been canceled, and we just went straight to a bar. Like we were just, I mean, it was so shocking because nothing has ever happened like that. And I will say, I was supposed to go to, we were playing in one more festival in between. I can't remember what, Natasha.
Chattanooga maybe, or
it was like I was going to like South by, Chattanooga, go to see 12-Hour Shift premiere in Tribeca, and then I was going to Europe to direct something, and all of it got canceled. And I was like, I guess I'm here on my couch then. That's the situation. And yeah, it was completely disappointing. And but also, I mean, the movies got out there, and I mean, thank God for all the people who are just so supportive, and people have been through word of mouth and the internet and various other places posting about them. So I think people did find out about movies like Lucky along the way, and 12-Hour Shift and After Midnight and all these kind of movies.
Yeah, fantastic. Kausar, I wanted to talk to you for a quick second, just because a little off topic of Lucky, but just a little bit about you and your career, because you grew up in San Jose, it said on IMDb, correct?
San Jose, baby. Yep.
LA from I spent about a decade up in Northern California, closer to San Francisco. But
Hey.
you also were on a couple episodes of Silicon Valley, so I just thought that's so unique that someone from Silicon Valley would be in Silicon Valley. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like, and tell people about what you do kind of on the comic side of things?
Yeah, that's fun, and I never actually clocked that, so that's very real. And I had a small role, super small role in the episodes, but one of the episodes, the mayor of San Jose was actually in town. So it was super random, and it was like, hey, you're my mayor. And I took a photo of me and the San Jose mayor and sent it to my parents because, they don't know, they don't clock. So that was a fun moment. And also kind of seeing Silicon Valley change over the years too has been really fun, because when I was born, Silicon Valley wasn't necessarily Silicon Valley yet. And sorry, you also asked about the.
Well, I just thought it was interesting how, when I was looking at your IMDb page, and most of your career seems to be with comedy.
Yeah, so love me some comedy. Dhruv is super heavy in comedy too, and I think that's a whole conversation too, which Natasha could probably share more about, bringing on comedians intentionally for the roles. So do a lot of sketch comedy. I have an all South Asian sketch comedy team called the Get Brown. We do a lot of sketch with, and also just did this CBS showcase, which is also comedy. For me, I love bringing the worlds together, but I think that's also why I love horror so much too, because I feel like when it comes down to it, the beats of horror and the beats of comedy kind of match each other in the terms of like escalation, like punchline. And yeah, that's why I love it.
Let's keep that theme going. Dhruv, you have a comedy background as well, and how did that play into the way you played Ted?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of that is, again, the masterminding of Natasha, who's on all departments. I think what a dream to work with a director who knows what she wants across the board, and like not just in terms of, like Julia was saying, in terms of the photography, in terms of the way the story is constructed, but also in terms of the casting and stuff with such specificity. So I love that you picked people with a comedy background. It does play into it. I think to go off Kausar's point, the language of comedy is pretty violent when you kind of think about it. Like you say, a comedian killed or they destroyed, and there's a punchline and there's slapstick. It is a very violent art form. You are kind of hitting the audience in the gut and making them viscerally feel something when they laugh, which is not very different than horror. It's just that you're using the tension in a different way. With comedy, you're breaking the tension to make a laugh. With horror, you're building and building the tension, and then you break it by, I don't know, sticking a knife in their guts with what you do on screen. So I think there is a lot in common. I think that kind of did play into the performance a little bit. I also just think I do a lot of improv and stuff, or I always say things in the present tense, but I don't know if we can anymore, because I did a lot of improv live and now we do it online, which is weird. But I think
UCB.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? So a lot of that, I think that improvising side kind of helped with what I was talking about earlier in terms of the ambiguity of Ted, and what exactly the shape-shifting nature of this character. I think that kind of helped me play that a little bit.
And now this is making me think again, like these instinctual choices. But you look at someone like Julia, who does these really like moody images, and then you put in this cast of like very funny, witty people, and you end up with something sort of unique that's like sort of a melange of all of those things. And I love that the diversity of instincts and tones on the cast and crew is really, I think it feeds into the tone of the movie being kind of unique.
Yeah, can you say that as well, Julia?
Yeah, I also wanted to give a shout out to all of our department heads, like LB, our production designer, Brianna, our costume designer. Like on something like this where it's somewhat small and it's mostly single camera, like I would be operating, right? I was operating a camera, and I would be there, and like I had such an amazing crew and we had such an amazing cast, and being at Village like is great. You're watching the movie unfold, but being behind the camera in something like this and having that intimate relationship with the actors and like being in the space, you feel things, like you feel the movie happening. And I knew that all these amazing people were bringing these things together and it was working. And we're super happy with the life that this film is having. And you can't ever plan where your film's going to go, but no matter where it was going to go, I knew we were doing something really exciting, and I could just like feel that in the moment. And what was your question? I totally blanked on your question, but I wanted to give our team was phenomenal again. Natasha's great and all, but we also had an amazing.
No, it's about the team. It's about the team 100 million %. I mean, LB, another really primary figure department. By the way, this was the most women heads of department that I have ever worked with, and it was great. But she has a background in fine arts. And so she herself is a sculptor and a painter. And so when I would come to her and I would say, look, halfway through the movie, the paintings are going to change in her house. They're going to become more violent. She was like, great, no problem. And the paintings you see in the house are painted by our production designer, so it's these people with these really multifaceted artists. No person is monolithic in their interests and talent who worked on this movie. And I think we really, well, first of all, we needed it because we had 15 days and not a lot of money. So, but I'm very grateful, to have people who are multifaceted in that way and have, a multiplicity of interests that does show up on the screen.
Absolutely. Dhruv, do you have something?
I was just going to add to what you were just saying about the production design and the posters and stuff. As an actor, because there's often waiting between takes, and when you're just sitting there and waiting, I've developed a habit of reading a lot of the set dressing. Like if there's books on a coffee table, I'll tend to like pick it up and read a whole short story or an article or magazines. And the magazines and stuff that were picked were so they weren't like just like regular, they weren't like magazines you could just pick out of a hat. You know what I mean? They were chosen from, it felt like very specific garage sales and stuff to give May more character. They were like vintage 1960s magazines that were half falling apart. It was so specific that, I had to give like huge kudos to the whole art department, because that's not an accidental choice. And it's not something that is necessarily going to show up on screen at every moment, but yet it contributes to the feel of the whole thing. So that was really cool for me.
There are a lot of fun little Easter eggs in the movie. So Josh, when you go back and watch it again, you can look out for this stuff. But there's a lot of fun details. For instance, there's mannequin hands that are like severed hands throughout the house that indicate what number attack we're on. So like the third night that the man comes back, you'll see like dismembered hands sort of like holding up, their fingers. There's, the paintings switch out. There's little stuff like the mask who was designed by Jeff Farley. The scarring on the mouth actually spells out the name of the woman that the man is stalking. So when you go back, you'll see the man actually has the word May written over his mouth. And in the parking garage, there's different things written on their mouth. So there's a lot of little details like that that are really, that are fun.
I love it. You're basically giving us breadcrumbs to follow, whether it's our first or second or multiple viewing of Lucky. That's fantastic. Brea, as the writer, do you have any other breadcrumbs to give us to help us on this journey?
Something that no one has brought up, but may not be obvious, is that I directed this movie. I directed a movie. I had a 3-week break between directing 12-Hour Shift and acting in this movie. And the lead of my movie is Angela Bettis. And the reason I love Angela Bettis is because of the movie May. And I named this character after the movie May, which is something that I kind of forgot about. And then, you make the movie and you're like, oh, wow, I named this. I wonder if Angela ever will notice.
Because we did get a comment where someone was like, I feel like there's some sort of connection between the film May and Lucky, and now
maybe that's it.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Also that I like to write unlikable female leads. That's maybe the real connection, but
no, that's great. I love the conversation we're having, with everyone's input, really giving us these breadcrumbs, because there is so much to unpack in Lucky, pleasantly so. Jeremy, what parts of the soundtrack are you most proud of?
I really love the way the vocals and the cellos sort of came together, because this was one of those situations where we really had to figure out like how to do this on a small budget. And I'm actually like, good thing we had a small budget, because maybe if we had a large budget, we would have been a lot more conventional. And it's very reliant on the technology, but the presence of the technology is done in a way where it doesn't sound synthetic. Like it doesn't sound like a synth or synthesis. It still sounds very organic. It's just organized in like very complex ways that you couldn't really do without the technology. Like there's like, I had actually like coded I used this program called Super Collider, which is all a coding thing that's for audio. It's like a language, like a programming language for audio. And I made like these systems that would take these samples and like arrange them in various organized ways, different patterns and several layers of them. Some of them are like 40 layers, some are like 4. Things that would be like virtually impossible to do manually. But it created like a very interesting sound. And I'm glad it still sounds minimal, because that was like the sort of the goal was like, there are a few elements, but everything sounds really detailed. That was kind of like the goal. Like if you listen to anything alone, it would be interesting. And together, nothing is sort of masking anything else. They all sort of have their own purpose and their place sonically and like compositionally. So yeah, I mean, I'm just sort of proud of like the way it sort of came together as this like sort of consistent, almost object. Like it's like a very consistent thing that exists, and it feels like throughout the film, it sort of just makes sense with itself. Even later, like in the near the end where it becomes a little more string based, I'm still using the same sort of organizational techniques, just on strings instead of vocals. And so they still, to me, it sounds like the same world. It still sounds related. It just sounds heightened and maybe more dramatic. Maybe more filmic is a better word than dramatic.
Just like Lucky as a film, I can't wait to see more and unpack more. I really can't wait to get this soundtrack, because part of a great soundtrack is that it's so seamless with the film that a great soundtrack can go unnoticed. So I really can't wait to get the soundtrack and to be able to absorb that as its own entity, because it's just really fascinating hearing about everything that went into it. I'm really impressed.
Thank you.
It's deeply complex. It's deeply complex. And I also want to say, like, Jeremy is a dream to work with, because it's not about ego. And a lot of times I think when you're composing music, you want to make something that's really distinctive, right? That's like, wow, I remember that melody, or I remember that piece. And I remember, Jeremy, you were very focused on making sure everything felt like part of the film and part of the same world. And if we went too far outside of it, you would like pull us back in. And I think also as a director, sometimes you get, seduced and you're like, oh, it's so beautiful. Like, let's just linger in it. And it's not the right choice, So I think that was important.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. To me, it's always got to be about the project. I mean, of course, like ego is always involved when you make art to some degree, and you have to sort of like, quash it down. But like, I try to pull myself back, to the project, and to like let it tell me what it needs. And this project in particular was like really clear. It was like, this is what I want. I was like, it made it. I mean, it really was so nice. Like it was like the language developed so quickly that we were working with, and it just
collaboration when
it's great
and create something
totally
together that is creative individually is wonderful. And I think that shows in so many aspects of Lucky. It's so obvious that you had a really good team. It's so obvious that the film was a joy to make, and it's so obvious that there was a unified effort. Brea, I have a question for you that's kind of interesting. Was it strange for you to play a character that you wrote? And on that same note, did you always intend to play May?
No, actually, I took the script to Epic Pictures, and I thought I might direct. I actually had another woman attached to star in it for a while. It was set up somewhere else, and it never happened. I never intended on playing May, because I just felt like the character I was writing was so different from me, in that she's very serious and just a much more of a professional person than than anyone can attest that I am. And Epic Pictures came back and they were like, we love this script. We will make it. We want you to play the lead, and we want Natasha to direct. And they'd already, I think, sent it to Natasha. Is that right? They didn't even ask me. They just sent it to Natasha. And I think Natasha was picturing me. So when we had our first call, she was also picturing me. And so I kind of had to wrap my brain around it. but it ended up being fine. I mean, I think it was great for me because it was obviously a challenge. It was pretty different than what I normally would play, uh, and it was also nice because Natasha had such a strong vision and she was really ready to come on and do an amazing job. So I could really step back and just focus on acting, which is kind of a joy after I had just come off of directing a feature. So it felt like such a nice experience to just focus on my acting. And I will say this, like it's funny because I wrote this character thinking she was a woman who wasn't that likable, maybe to some people, maybe everybody. She makes a lot of decisions I don't necessarily agree with. She's chosen this career that I think is, I just like, I mean, I don't want to judge her as a writer, but I definitely am not her. And then becoming her, I found myself like getting almost defensive for her at times. I found myself really like wanting to defend May's choices because I'm like, well, this is who she is and this is the choices she's made. And it's funny because some of the feedback is about that we've gotten any negative feedback, which isn't even negative, that people are like, well, why did May make these choices? And I'm like, well, it's so obvious to me that this is who she is as a person. And so it definitely changed my perspective playing her because I think I had been approaching it as a story for so long. And then I got in and sort of started approaching it as May. And that really made me see the world through May's eyes in some ways.
Yeah, I'm not sure that she's as unlikable as you think, and that might be because you can't see outside of yourself in this case. Because of course she does things that we don't understand, but there's a lot about Lucky that we don't understand. There's a lot about life we don't understand. There's a lot about human behavior and the way we interact with people in our strata that we never understand. It's so interesting to hear that because I think a lot of people are going to say, yeah, May made some interesting life choices. We kind of want to roll our eyes about the book and things like that. But I don't think she's nearly as unlikable as you're describing.
Yeah, and maybe I shouldn't say unlikable. I just think she's chosen a very different path and has a very different set of beliefs. But I don't think that means necessarily that she deserves to be brutally attacked every night, no. And I think that was sort of what I came around to in some ways.
But you brought that to the role. I think on the page she is much colder, but you playing the role, you brought a lot of that humanity to her.
Yeah, thanks.
I mean, you and your great cast. I mean, Kausar and Dhruv, like you bring a lot of humanity to these characters who, if I was just reading, I might be looking at them and going like, why are they being so mean to May? But you both are able to convey an emotional complexity that equals the script and the themes explored. So, I mean, congratulations to every single one of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I feel so lucky, to have been part of this movie because it really is. I don't know. I feel like just the talent, looking literally at the talent in this room, I'm like, this is not I don't know. I mean, obviously you guys already have great careers behind and so far in front of you, but I do feel like Lucky is going to be quite an important stamp on the people. And you know what I mean? Like when you look at the direction of Natasha's or like Brea's writing and acting, Julia's photography in this, Jeremy's soundtrack, Kausar, your performance. I mean, I can see this. I know like reviews have used words already like calling card and stuff like that, but I really, I don't know how you can deny that kind of talent from an outsider's point of view, even in my opinion. Yeah, you guys are great.
Absolutely. What a great team you guys assembled. And, like I said before, Lucky is clearly was a labor of love, and the final result is so exciting. It's so fresh. So timely, and it just has so much to offer. It's after you've seen it, you get to unpack it, and it's a film that doesn't demand multiple viewings, but it certainly lends itself to them. And like I said, I'm excited to go back and check this film out. Like I said, Donnie Darko, It Follows. It has that sort of vibe to it, this sort of nightmare logic that allows for multiple interpretations, while at the same time exploring some very concrete and difficult themes. Just such an incredible film. I'm just so glad that you guys all brought this to fruition.
Thank you. Well, and it's also a lot of people who aren't on this Zoom right now who made all of these things possible.
Anyone else in particular you want to give a shout out to?
I mean, just the teams, you know. I mean, Julia had a great team. They were hustling every day. Again, we made this movie very fast. So, you know, everything from the art department to our production team to, you know, all those things are, everyone kind of has to understand the movie that they're making. And again, it's like, you know, a lot of these guys are saying, oh, well, you know, we had a singular vision. That's all prep. So like, that's not like, I just woke up one morning and I was like, this is what it looks like. This is what it sounds like. You prep, you do the work, you put it in, you decide, you make the decisions, you have the conversation with the writer, you do your job. And so I think everybody understanding what their job was and coming to set and performing admirably, you know, is hard to do when you're not really getting paid, right? Like all of us deserve to be making much more money than we made on this movie. And yet we were there because we were trying to make something special. And again, you know, kudos to Epic as well for being down, you know, to do something very, very strange. And so what you get in exchange for limited resources is a little bit more freedom. And I think, you know, everyone was sort of on board to test out those limits and try something different. So absolutely, I mean, everybody.
Fantastic. Listen, we've only got about 10 minutes left. I want to go around and hear what everyone's doing now. It's, you know, I know I have my connection to the film industry that, you know, these films take years to come to fruition. By the time a film's released, you're already working on the next thing, and I want to know what that is. So, Kausar, I understand you've got a project with Paul Feig right now, yeah?
Oh yeah, that was actually a project shot a couple while ago, but it released last year called East of La Brea. Yeah, and that was super fun. I love Powder Keg and Paul
Fantastic.
Feig
And what are you working on now?
Now I'm working on some different voiceover projects. I've been working on Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous as one of the kids in there, and some other voiceover projects that are going to be coming out this year. And also this was a big couple months of like working on some of my individual projects. So a horror short film and that I'm currently in post with, and then a comedy, like a queer rom-com that I'm currently in post with.
Oh, nice. Well, you definitely have to keep us in the loop on all your horror related projects, because you definitely made some fans here and we want to see what you do next.
Thank you.
Yeah, you, Dhruv, I understand you came right from a set before you joined our panel. What are you working on?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, this was just a little guest star role on this ABC show called Station 19. I'm acting wise, I've been recurring on the show called Good Trouble, where season three is airing right now. I just shot right before the holiday shot on this Netflix show that'll be out later this year called On the Verge, which I think was a lot of fun, very comedic with Julie Delpy, who's a French actress that some people may know from the Before trilogy. What else have I done? I don't know. I've been on my own on the writing side. I mean, I also write and I've made a lot of shorts and stuff like that. On that side, I'm just kind of pitching around a TV show at the moment. Enjoying this global pandemic, drinking some red wine, going on weird little outdoor picnic dates, you know, all of that. That's about it. That's about it.
Also, we are unlucky that we don't get to see Dhruv improv because he's an improv genius.
Oh,
so even though the theater isn't open, he is genius.
That's so nice of you. I guess you can watch me do weird live stream improv on YouTube if you like. I do that almost every week, and that's just to keep my brain from going crazy. Yeah.
We're glad you're doing something, and you know, the pandemic won't last forever. We'll all be out there again soon, and can't wait to see what you're up to in the future. Jeremy, what are you working on these days?
Yeah, so I sort of took this last several months as an opportunity to work on this project that I've wanted to do for a while. It's a collaborative thing, and someone starts and you pass just like a sound back and forth, and it's like a computer music collaborative thing. Unpopular music. You're not going to hear it on the radio. But you know, I'm hoping some people will find it compelling and interesting. And so yeah, I finished about 5 pieces. I'm hoping to get maybe a couple more done and release it. And then a couple other like soundtrack releases, like organizing things, getting that ready. Potentially like an audio series. Just, you know, a lot of random things. Also drinking. Actually, I'm drinking bourbon instead of red wine.
Oh, me too.
Stronger. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I have a couple kids here, so kind of busy trying to keep them focused on the laptop for school and all that other stuff. But definitely getting ready to join the real world again. I'm really eager. I'm excited for the Roaring 20s to happen.
Yeah.
I think we all are. Well, we'll let people know on Dread Central when the soundtrack for Lucky is released, because a lot of people are interested in hearing it.
Great.
After hearing you discuss it, and we're excited to hear what you're working on next.
Awesome.
Julie, how about you? What are you working on these days?
I was just in the color suite finishing the last feature I shot after Lucky. So that is done and hopefully coming out soon. Prepping a tiny little horror short called Sleep. That's a oneer that shows a woman at night with a home invader, and it's like one shot carrying us from night to day, which should be cool. And then attached to a few features, seeing what lands, and just looking for some more narrative stuff. So
Awesome.
drinking tequila.
Yeah, there you go. You definitely made some fans over here at Dread Central. We definitely want to see Sleep when it's done, and we can't wait to see what you do throughout your career.
Thanks.
Yeah. Brea, how about you? What are you working on these days?
Well, I have a graphic novel out that I like to plug because books come out. You can buy them anytime. It's called Mary, and it's a YA sci-fi graphic novel you can get anywhere about the descendant of Mary Shelley, but it's like sci-fi. Yesterday, I think I'm in a movie that came out yesterday called The Stylist. I think it was yesterday, maybe it's this weekend. I'm not sure.
More proof that your career just is blowing up during COVID times. You've done so much. The Stylist, starring role in that. We've seen it. We love it.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, it's on Arrow Video. That player, but yeah, it's it's fun. It's also a very scary movie that is also very beautiful. Totally worth watching.
And I would recommend that as soon as people are done watching Lucky on Shudder, that they go over and watch The Stylist on Arrow. Two great films starring Brea Grant. Well, how about you, Natasha? What are you working on?
So I've learned how to make Negronis. So I am officially the fanciest of everybody here. So I've been perfecting my Negroni recipe. It's been really interesting year. It's like, I think I was in a little bit of overdrive when South by canceled. And like Brea said, it was such a hit the brakes so hard, so fast. And it's been a really interesting journey of sort of looking at the projects on my desk and sort of that I've been circulating, and really asking myself, honestly, what is the story that I want to tell? What is the world I want to live in for the next few years of whatever the next choice is. So it's been a lot of recalibrating for me, and taking a little bit more initiative to go find, IP or books, or, Brea's an avid reader. We're always talking about our favorite sci-fi books and stuff. Finding the right thing for my next project. So hopefully there's a few things brewing, and all in the genre space. So it will be probably either a horror or a sci-fi or some combination therein.
We love it. And we're going to be following your stuff of the way on Dread Central. Before we break, I want to go around and just give everyone a chance to say something great about Lucky, what they're most excited about Lucky, anything they just want our readers and viewers to know about Lucky. I'm going to start with you, Kausar.
Yeah, I think I am just so excited by the power of the film in terms of taking all these systems that are out there and these metaphors and putting words to it and putting feelings to it. And I think it's all kudos to the team that was able to create this manifestation of a film that explains that feeling of what it's like to exist as a woman and be scared. So just excited for people to see it and resonate with it or learn from it. And just it is clearly a big labor of love. So also just excited for it to be out in the world.
It will resonate. It will resonate. I believe it. Dhruv, final words about Lucky.
Yeah, God, I don't know if I could say it better than Kausar did, but I'm excited for people to see what an incredibly cool thing so many talented people made in a compressed amount of time, with just like squeezed all the juice out of this orange that was possible. It's incredible. And it's also, I feel like I'm excited for what a milestone it's going to be looked at when you look back at the careers of all these people, 10 years from now, and be like, oh shit, they were all unlucky together. I think it's gonna be really cool.
I think you're right. I think this is just another a stepping stone, an important one, and what's going to be a successful you all. Julia, any final thoughts about Lucky?
The same. I think I'm excited for the conversation that it's gonna, stir up, and excited to see what people think of it. And also, like, I'm just really impressed by everybody and what we did in so little time. So I hope that the crew sees it and everybody sees it, and they're proud of what they did. So.
Yeah, I think everyone who sees it is going to be impressed. It certainly doesn't seem like a film that was made in a rush or that was made on limited resources. It seems like a film that is just completely actualized, and that comes from the fact that it was such a great cohesive team. Jeremy, final thoughts about Lucky?
I just want to express gratitude for being entrusted to be the the musical voice for this, especially like as as a man, and sort of I can only understand this so much, which is unfortunate. And I never really felt like I had to be present something that was going to be, how do I put it? I just listened to the project, like I was saying earlier, and as a man, it could have been a problem for me, I could have had an issue, but the project was so well developed and so clear and so important. I think it just told me what to do, and I'm just really sort of thankful for that. I'm thankful to have been a part of that experience and to sort of contribute to such an important film that sort of has such an important message. I just really am grateful for that. I also want to give a shout out to the two musicians, Eliza Bagg, vocalist. She's incredible. She's amazing. She goes by Lizelle. She does some really wild music. And Jacob Braun, who's an incredible cellist. And they're both like super down, experimental, totally get it. Down to make crazy sounds and not like worry about their instrument. So yeah, just all around like super grateful to have worked with wonderful people and to be part of this awesome team.
Wonderful words, and as excited we are for the film, we really are excited to get the soundtrack a couple weeks from now as well. So congratulations on that. Brea, final words about Lucky.
I mean, this is probably obvious, but obviously I'm very grateful that this movie got made. I was, wrote this movie maybe 3 years before it got made, so been living with it for 5 years, so it's really excited to see it out in the world. That's it. Oh, go tell your friends about it. I mean, these horror, these like little indie movies, I mean, we live or die by word of mouth. We don't have billboards or no one is paying for our advertising. There's not commercials about this movie on whatever streaming platform you're watching. So it is so important that people talk about it and tell their friends, and make conversations about it, just because they don't get more attention, and then more movies like this get made.
I think people are going to be talking about it, and not necessarily because Dread Central tells them to, but because they're going to see this and they're not going to be able to do anything but talk about it. So congratulations. I'm really excited for everyone to see it. Director Natasha, final thoughts on Lucky for the evening.
Yeah, I think everybody really covered it. I mean, these folks and our cast and crew are really the heart and soul of the movie. Movies live or die according to the people working on it. So that's it. What am I most excited for? I think the thing I'm most excited for is to collaborate with all these people on something in the future. So, it's a family. So, I can't wait to work with these guys again.
Well, fantastic. I want to thank all my panelists for being here. Stick around for a second, but it is time to say goodnight to the rest of you. Go see Lucky now. It's streaming on Shudder. It's an incredible film, and I can't say enough great things about it. Again, thank you to all of my panelists for giving me your time this evening. Thank you to my team at Dread Central for backing me up on the tech side. And thanks to all of you for tuning in and for letting us be a part of your lives. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.